Hey everybody, I'm going to talk to you this morning about triggers because I believe that everybody has triggers to some greater or lesser degree. Really what a trigger is something to do with your past or an experience that you've witnessed or somebody around you has witnessed that has a long-lasting deep effect on you, that if you're ever around a situation that feels familiar, seems similar words, similar environments, similar expressions of face, similar music, it can take that person straight back to the original event. And if that event has not been worked through and healed, that trigger can be quite alarming, and it can be a tiny thing, and it will just affect your world in that moment, maybe for a few hours, maybe for a few days. So I'm somebody who struggles with PTSD, which means that I have to be very trigger savvy. And so what I'm saying is you don't have to have PTSD to have triggers. I think we all have them. But what becomes really helpful is when you know what your triggers are. Because when you know what they are, you can either do your level best to avoid them like the plague, or you can do the work that's necessary, the healing work, to diminish the intensity of the impact of those triggers, so that you can either prepare for them if they're sort of everyday things that you can't avoid. You can go some way to prepare for them so that you're kind of more in control of your emotions, or when you know what your triggers are, you can kind of direct your life in a certain way to help yourself. It's not always as easy as that. If it was, there would be no PTSD sufferers and everybody would be able to eliminate their triggers. I'm not undermining triggers either. Some are never going to be okay. Some we can get a little bit more at ease with. It's okay to know what your triggers are and then to create a life where those triggers do not exist or they're minimized. If it's around people that are the triggers, that can get complicated. If it's family or loved ones, if it's an environment you have to work in, it's really hard. But it's so important for you to know what your triggers are or start to work them out, because you learn something more about you. It helps you to keep you safe. And I don't just mean physically, emotionally as well. So the way I look at triggers is very much trying to work with keeping your emotional well-being stable and at peace for most of the time. So that's why when we try to avoid triggers, as in not know what they are, just run away from situations and then sit with the aftershock, we're just walking around a world where we're just going to get triggered all over the place, and it hurts. When we start to go, okay, why was that so uncomfortable? We don't just look at the trigger, we look at the layers around it. What was it that it made me feel? What was it that came up? What was I left with? What did I need in that moment that could help comfort that emotion that I was feeling? It might be that I know in that situation never to walk through that door again. And then actually that situation is contained, I'm away from it. It's about self-protection and a degree of self-preservation. But it's okay to have triggers. It can be a bane, but life is still livable. But it's another way of, if you use it to a benefit, of starting to become more self-aware of yourself, of what your needs are. A lot more self-care can be incurred when we know what our triggers are. And we learn, ultimately, a really important lesson to protect ourselves. So we know what's good for us and what isn't good for us. Because I tell you, the amount of people I work with that when I ask, do you know what's bad for you? Do you know what's okay for you? And they don't. I didn't. We don't, unless we do the work. So you could use it as a tool to get to know you a little bit more and keep you precious, keep you safe. But know that triggers don't completely have to rule your life. Know what they are, and then you can do something to keep them at bay, avoid them, or keep them back. Or learn ways of managing those triggers in the moment when they come up. But it's always about self-care and being nice to self, being kind to self. Get people on board with your triggers. So if it's certain words, certain situations like that, people will know to keep your triggers safe, to keep you safe, and kind of stay away from certain things, certain topics, whatever it might be. I'm not saying everybody's always going to be that accommodating, but the people that count will. Have a good Saturday.